just when the whole world had accepted that the future of electric vehicles would depend on a few expensive metals. Tesla made an announcement that shook the foundations of the EV industry. The only topic of discussion in the auto sector is what new game has Elon Musk played this time. The reason is Tesla's brand new electric motor, which isn't just a simple update, but a groundbreaking invention that will change the entire system. This motor is rare earth free, meaning it doesn't use the rare earth metals that almost every EV company has relied on until now. While these metals have made cars expensive and put pressure on supply chains, Tesla has completely eliminated this dependence. Most surprisingly, this motor is said to be more powerful, more efficient, and more effective than ever before, even without rare earth elements. Through new magnetic technology, not only has the car's range been increased, but energy waste has also been significantly reduced, meaning less charging, more travel, and lower costs. This is why everyone from giants like BYD to even within Tesla itself is trying to understand the implications of this move. The question arises, is this merely a step taken for environmental reasons, or is there a larger strategy hidden behind it to strengthen its grip on the EV market? Will this motor completely change the equation of price, technology, and competition in the electric car market in the future? To find the answers to all these questions, be sure to watch the video till the end. And before you go any further, subscribe to the channel so you can be the first to see such powerful and exclusive videos. When we look at today's EV industry, everything seems very futuristic and clean from the outside. But behind it lies an old and somewhat bitter truth: dependence on rare earth metals. From the beginning, almost every electric car motor has relied on these special metals. These metals are not like ordinary iron or copper. They are elements that are found in very small quantities in the earth and are extremely difficult to extract, refine, and make usable. These materials have been used extensively in EV motors, particularly for permanent magnets, because they make the motors smaller, more powerful, and more efficient. But this necessity gradually became the biggest weakness of the EV industry. The problem wasn't just that these metals are rare. The real issue was that the world's supply was concentrated in the hands of a few countries. Most rare earth metals come from China, which meant that all the world's auto companies became dependent on that single supply chain. As demand increased, prices skyrocketed. On one hand, governments wanted electric vehicles to be affordable so that people would switch from petrol and diesel, and on the other hand, the most crucial component of the motor was becoming more expensive by the day. This directly impacted the price of vehicles, and for the average person, EVs remained a thing of the future, not a necessity of today. And then amidst this entrenched reality, a shockwave hit, a shockwave that shook the entire system. When Tesla announced that they had developed an electric motor that didn't use any rare earth metals, many people initially couldn't believe it. For years, the industry had believed that building a high-performance motor without rare earth metals was virtually impossible. But as soon as the news broke, it spread like wildfire. Engineers were astonished, investors became cautious, and other auto companies wondered if this was true. It would completely change the game. From social media to industry meetings, the same question echoed. Had Tesla really achieved what had been considered impossible for years? Some called it a marketing stunt. Some called it the direction of the future, but no one could ignore it. The true story of the new magnetic technology. First, let's understand how an electric motor actually works. The heart of any electric motor is the relationship between magnets and electricity. When electricity flows, it creates a magnetic field. And this magnetic field generates rotational force. This rotation is what turns the wheels of the vehicle. The better the magnets, the more powerful and efficient the motor. Until now, the motors used in the EV industry relied on very strong permanent magnets to generate power. These magnets are made from rare earth metals because they provide more power in a smaller size. However, the problem was that these magnets are expensive, heavy, and difficult to control. Performance degrades with increasing temperature, and there is a continued dependence on these metals. Companies were forced to use them because no other viable alternative was apparent. This is where Tesla started thinking differently. Tesla didn't ask, where can we find even better magnets? But rather, do we really need to be so dependent on magnets? This thinking is at the root of this new technology. Instead of completely eliminating magnets, Tesla worked on redesigning the magnetic system itself. In simple terms, Tesla made the interaction between the magnets and coils inside the motor smarter. Now, the power doesn't come solely from heavy magnets, but from how the electricity is manipulated, at what timing it's applied, and how intelligently the magnetic field is controlled. Think of it this way. Previously, people used a heavy hammer to get more power. Now, the same work is being done with the right technique and precise application of force. Tesla's new motor changes the way the magnetic field is controlled. Previously, the magnets in the motor operated with a constant force whether needed or not. This resulted in wasted energy. Now, with the new technology, the magnetic force can be increased or decreased as needed. This means that when the vehicle is moving slowly, unnecessary power is not wasted and full power is only applied when high speed or a heavy load is required. The biggest advantage of this is that the motor can perform the same function and in many cases even better without rare earth metals. This is because the power here comes from control, not from the metal itself. Electricity is used more intelligently, which generates less heat. Less heat means a longer motor life, stable performance, and less frequent servicing. Another major change is that the new magnetic technology makes the motor lighter. Removing heavy metals reduces the weight of the motor, and a lighter vehicle requires less energy to drive. This directly impacts the range. The battery remains the same, but the vehicle can travel further. This is a huge advantage for the average person, as EVs will no longer be limited to short city drives. There's another hidden advantage of this technology. Stability. Rare earth magnets can lose their strength over time, especially in high temperatures. This risk is significantly reduced in the new motor. This means that the vehicle will feel the same years later as it did when it was new. This new magnetic technology is set to change the perception of EV. The competition will no longer be about who has the most expensive metals, but about who has better design and better control. And perhaps this is the turning point where the world of electric vehicles will truly become accessible to everyone. The performance game: more power, less energy. Loss. Now, let's talk about the thing that makes every EV buyer and every auto company sit up and take notice. Performance. Because ultimately, how far the car will go, how fast it will go, and how long it will last all depend on this. With the new motor, Tesla has truly changed the game here. In simple terms, the strength of this motor lies not just in delivering more power, but in extracting more work while wasting less energy. This is what sets it apart from older motors. Until now, most electric motors had a common problem. As power increased, so did the heat. This heat directly translates to energy loss. That is, the battery's electricity, instead of powering the car, would be used to heat the motor. The result was that performance would drop at high speeds or during prolonged use. But with the new motor, Tesla has addressed this loss and started making improvements from there. In this motor, power is not being forced out, but rather used at the right time and in the right amount. This means that the motor doesn't exert its full power all the time, but only delivers as much power as is necessary at that moment. This reduces unnecessary stress and generates less heat. When there is less heat, less energy is wasted, and that energy can be used to propel the car forward. This directly impacts the car's speed. The power delivery in the new motor is much smoother. As soon as you press the accelerator, the car moves forward without any jerks, no sudden surges, no intermittent power delivery. This smoothness is not just for comfort, but also helps extend the life of the motor and other parts because when there is less stress on the system, there will be less wear and tear. Another major difference is that this motor maintains its power even at high speeds. In older motors, it often happened that the car felt fast initially, but as the speed increased, the power felt diminished. In the new technology, the power remains more consistent. This means that whether it's city driving or long-distance highway travel, the performance remains consistent in both scenarios. Another advantage of reduced heat loss is that it eliminates the need for heavy systems to keep the motor cool. When there's less strain on the cooling system, the entire vehicle becomes lighter. A lighter vehicle means more work done with less energy. This is why the range increases and the battery isn't subjected to as much stress. Now, let's talk about the vehicle's lifespan. Most people think that the battery is everything in an EV, but the condition of the motor is equally important. Excessive heat gradually weakens the internal components of the motor. Elon Musk has always believed not in simply improving things, but in turning them upside down. When the world was focused on making better batteries, he focused on the charging network. When everyone considered automatic gears to be the future, he made software the brain of the car. And now, when the entire industry had accepted rare earth metals as a necessity, he questioned that very necessity. His mindset has always been, if something is expensive, don't try to make it better, make it obsolete. This is why, instead of making incremental improvements to the system, he breaks it down and builds a new one. This new motor is also a result of the same thinking. The question wasn't how to make rare earth metals cheaper, but whether we even need them at all. This is what sets Tesla apart from other companies. They don't just solve today's problems, but try to eliminate tomorrow's dependencies, increasing range, making charging easier, and reducing price. These are not separate goals, but parts of the same vision. China and BYD's unease, the real competition, is here. Now comes the most sensitive and impactful part of this whole story. The unease of China and BYD. Because this isn't just about a new motor. It's a direct power struggle, a fight for dominance and control. Until now, China's position in the EV world has been very strong. The reason was clear. China's firm grip on the supply of rare earth metals. Most of the world's electric motors, batteries, and magnets were somehow connected to that supply chain. This meant that whether a car was made in America, Europe, or India, its heart was in some form connected to China. Companies like BYD used this strength as their weapon. They built everything, batteries, motors, and manufacturing, into a single integrated system. This is why BYD grew rapidly, was able to produce affordable EVs, and strengthened its presence in the global market. But this entire model had a weak point: dependence on rare earth metals. As long as the world needed these metals, China and BYD's position was secure. But as soon as the concept of rare earth-free motors emerged, this weakness was suddenly exposed. If motors can perform better without those metals, then China's biggest strategic advantage begins to weaken. This is why companies like BYD have become cautious. This fear isn't just about competition. It's about the entire business model being shaken. For BYD, the real concern isn't that one company will pull ahead. The real concern is that if this technology becomes commonplace, their cost advantage could disappear. Until now, they were able to produce affordable EVs because they had an advantage in raw materials and the supply chain. But if the rest of the world no longer needs those raw materials, this advantage will automatically weaken. From here, the matter extends to the global market. Until now, the EV power balance was clear. China was ahead in manufacturing and supply, while other countries led in technology and design. But the new motor could change this balance. If the need for rare earth elements decreases, the US, Europe, and other countries will be able to develop their EV industry more independently. They won't have to worry about supply chain disruptions or political pressure every time. This is a kind of relief for global companies. They will now start viewing EVs not only from an environmental or cost perspective, but also as a means of strategic independence. This means that in the future, the EV market will not just be a battle between car manufacturers, but a battle for technological dominance and self-reliance among nations. China's anxiety is also increasing because this change may not be gradual but sudden. Once the technology is proven, other companies will adopt it very quickly, and then China's hold on the market could loosen in an instant. This is why BYD and other Chinese companies will now be forced to think not only about expansion, but also about defensive strategies. This will have another impact on the global EV market. Competition will intensify. When motor costs decrease and supply becomes easier, more companies will enter the EV market. This will drive prices down further, and customers will have more options. This change is a challenge for China, but an opportunity for the rest of the world. Impact on the global market. It would be a grave mistake to think that the impact of this new motor will be limited to just one company or one country. In reality, its true impact will be on the global market, and that's what makes this story so significant. Until now, the electric vehicle market was somewhat fragmented. Some countries were ahead in technology, some in manufacturing, and others in the supply of raw materials. This balance was maintained for years by rare earth metals. But as soon as a crack appears in this chain, the entire global EV landscape begins to shift. The first impact will be felt by those countries that have been cautious about EV. Many European and Asian countries wanted to accelerate EV adoption, but supply chain issues and costs were holding them back. If rare earth metals are removed from the motor, it will become much easier for these countries to manufacture and sell EVs. They will no longer have to fear that a disruption in supply from a single country will shut down their factories. This will boost local manufacturing and bring new players into the market. For the US and Europe, this change is also strategic. They have been trying for years to increase self-reliance in the automotive and technology sectors. The new motor technology gives them the opportunity to strengthen the EV ecosystem within their own systems, rather than relying solely on imports. This will create jobs, attract investment, and give them greater control over the technology. The second major impact on the global market will be on prices. When the motor becomes cheaper to produce, the overall cost of the vehicle will decrease. And when prices fall, EVs will no longer be limited to wealthy countries or large cities. Markets in Africa, South Asia, and Latin America, where EVs were previously considered too expensive, will also open up. This is the moment when a technology truly becomes global. This will also have an impact on the oil and fuel market. As EVs become cheaper and more reliable, the demand for petrol and diesel will come under increasing pressure. This change won't happen overnight, but it will gradually become apparent. Countries will begin to rethink their energy policies, and EVs will become not just an environmental issue, but an integral part of economic planning. Now, let's look at the companies. For companies like Tesla, this is an opportunity to maintain their market leadership through technology. For BYD and other large companies, it's a warning that cheap manufacturing alone will no longer be sufficient. They too will have to rethink their approach at the technological level. This will intensify competition in the global EV market, which will ultimately benefit the consumer. Another major change will be seen at the investment level. When confidence in technology increases, investors also invest more freely. Innovations like new motor technologies will attract global investment to the EV sector. This will also create opportunities for startups, suppliers, and new tech companies. EVs will no longer be the domain of just a few large companies. Finally, and most importantly, the uncertainty surrounding EVs in the global market will gradually decrease. People will start seeing EVs not as a risk, but as a normal option. When charging is easy, prices are manageable, and supply is secure. The transition accelerates naturally. Environment versus strategy. What is the real motive? Now, when we look at this whole story from a broader perspective, a big question automatically arises. What is the real motive? Is all of this truly driven by a desire to protect the environment, or is there a very clever strategy hidden behind it to strengthen market dominance? The truth is, both are happening simultaneously. On one hand, eliminating rare earth metals will reduce mining, minimize damage to land and water, and create a cleaner supply chain. This is undoubtedly a positive step for the environment. But on the other hand, it's equally true that this move gives Tesla a market advantage that will be difficult for other companies to match. Here, Elon Musk's thinking is clearly visible. He never makes a major decision based on a single reason. If a move benefits the environment and simultaneously provides a market advantage, then that's the perfect strategy for him. In other words, this isn't a battle of either environment or strategy, but rather both together. Tesla understands very well that the company that solves tomorrow's problems today will rule the market. Tomorrow, this is where the alarm bells start ringing for other companies. Until now, they were operating comfortably. Minor improvements, the same old motors, the same supply chains, and the same mindset. But this path is no longer easy. They face a clear challenge. Either adopt this new thinking or gradually fall behind. Because if customers start getting EVs with longer range, lower prices, and faster charging, why would they choose the old technology? The difficulty for other companies is that simply changing the motor won't be enough. They will have to change their entire approach from design to manufacturing and from supply chain to software. This change is both expensive and risky. But for those who don't take this risk, staying relevant in the EV market will become even more difficult. This is why in the coming years, we will see some companies grow rapidly while others will quietly disappear from the market. Now, let's look at the picture of the future. 5 to 10 years from now,